No, we have a drummer there. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Yasodanandana Radhajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Radhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Yasodanandana Radhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Go Premanande Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Kotivachalam Pangum Hanghayate Grim Yat Kripa Taraham Vande Shri Gurum Nirataranam Vanchikalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. The day that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita was probably the most important day of creation. Because Krishna, he spoke the absolute truth. Does anybody know why he spoke it? For the benefit of humanity, yes. Very good, yes. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I mean, Krishna spoke it 5,000 years ago. And now, throughout the world, it's being studied in universities. Our Bhagavad Gita alone has been translated into, I think, about 70 different languages. Bhagavad Gita as it is, and there's so many other translations. So people are benefiting. Literally millions of people around the world are benefiting on the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years later. That's pretty significant. So it was a very important day for human society when Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. Another reason Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita was to convince Arjuna to fight. Now, one might ask, well, why would he have to convince Arjuna to fight? He's a warrior. He's a fighter. That's his dharma. He fights. But Arjuna didn't want to fight because he was asked to fight dear relatives, Bhishma. Bhishma was his grandfather. And we can't imagine how much love Arjuna had for Bhishma. And Dronacharya. Dronacharya is his teacher. He had so much love for him as well. So they happened to be on the other side that Arjuna was asked to fight. So it's extremely difficult for him to do this. And he tears in his eyes. He says, I can't do it. And he laid his bow down. And he wasn't going to do it. So Krishna explained that you're mourning for that which wise men do not mourn over. Wise men, they don't lament for the body, because the body is not who we are. We're the soul within. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kamaram yovaram jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra tamiti. One of the first instructions Krishna gave to Arjuna, that just as the soul is going through this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul is going to go on to another body. And if Bhishma wins the battle, then he gets the kingdom. And if he dies, he goes to heaven. So, no loss. So the Bhagavad Gita, so much wisdom is there. This timeless wisdom. And therefore, you could read the Bhagavad Gita over and over and over again, and it doesn't get dry. It's ever fresh. Just like here, there's one devotee in the Bay Area, Vaisheshika Prabhu. He started this thing called the CHAD. CHAD stands for Chapter a Day. Chapter a Day Bhagavad Gita. Actually, Prabhupada wrote many devotees that it will help you in your spiritual life very much if you read a chapter a day of the Bhagavad Gita. Many devotees who wrote that too. And so Vaisheshika Prabhu, he started this, and there's I think there's hundreds and hundreds of devotees around the world that read a chapter a day of the Bhagavad Gita. And I've been doing it also for about 12 years now. Every day I read a chapter. And it doesn't get old. This is the nature of the absolute truth. It doesn't get old. And it's very inspiring. So much wisdom is there in the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna explained the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And then he said that now you do as you like. Do as you like. And Arjuna said, Nasta moha smriti labdha karishye vacharam dava. He said, now my illusion is gone. And my memory of you has awoken. And now I'm ready to act as you desire. I'm ready to fight. And he did. And of course, Krishna was the charioteer. So the last verse In the Bhagavad Gita it stated, Yatto Yageshwara Krishna Yata Partha Dhanurjari Tatta Shiva Jayo Juvani Tira Mama. That wherever there is Krishna, the supreme mystic, and wherever there is Arjuna, the great archer, there'll be Tattashri, there'll be opulence, there'll be victory. Tattashri Vijayo Bhuti, extraordinary strength and morality. Yes. So it's interesting that in these four, morality is there as well. Krishna is the most moral. And one may ask, well, wait, he's trying to convince Arjuna to fight. Nobody likes war, but he's trying to convince Arjuna to fight. And he doesn't want to fight. Now one might think, well, that doesn't seem very moral. But Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight for the purpose of Dharma. He wanted Yudhisthira to be the king. And Yudhisthira, he's Dharma personified, literally. Such a great devotee. And also he was a warrior as well. So Krishna wanted Yudhisthira to be the king of the world. And if he wasn't going to be the king, who would be the king? Anybody know? Duryodhana. Duryodhana, who was such an evil person, he tried to kill the 5 Pandavas. Such great devotees. So you can't imagine how terrible the world would have been had he become the king. So Krishna came to establish religious principles, to protect the devotees and to stop the demoniac elements. So the Bhagavad Gita is a guide. It's a guide for living entities to go back to the spiritual world. I met one person on book distribution. My service is I distribute these Bhagavad Gitas to people daily. That's my service. So I was speaking to one person, and this person said, I don't want to be steered. You understand this word steered? It's like cows, they're steered. I don't want to be steered in one direction. But everybody's being steered by their mind, by their senses, by the media. Everybody's being steered. So we can either be steered, directed by Krishna, or it can be directed or steered by the external energy. But if we're steered, if we're directed by Krishna, then we go back to the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, there's no anxiety. It's called Vaikuntha. This world is known as Kunta, which means it's a place of anxiety. A lot of misery, a lot of anxiety. Just like we just recently got over this COVID-19. A lot of anxiety for people around the world. So that's the nature of this world. Nature of the spiritual world, there is no anxiety. So this is the direction that Krishna wants to lead us towards. But to achieve that goal, one has to follow the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And it's described that the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the entire Vedic literature. There's so many Vedic literatures. The Bhagavad Gita is described as the essence of all the Vedas. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there's one verse is the essence of all the other. There's 700 verses, and there's one verse which is the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadhamam parityajya mamekang saranam vraja ahang tvang sarvapapevyo mokshayasyami masucha. Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I'll free you from all sinful reactions. Don't fear. There's many different commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, and there's one person who commented on the Bhagavad Gita, and in his commentary, he said, Krishna is asking for too much. But this person didn't know that if one surrenders to Krishna, they get Krishna, and you get the spiritual world. So it's a great success, actually, to go back to the spiritual world. That's our home. This is not our home. Our home is in the spiritual world. Because we're spiritual beings. We're not material beings. This is not our home. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches us who we are. Just like in the universities, they're trying to figure out what is consciousness. In neuroscience, they're trying to figure out what is consciousness. And they haven't a clue. Decades and decades they're trying to figure out what is consciousness. They don't know. So what is consciousness? Consciousness is the soul. That's who we are. We're the soul within. That's where the consciousness is coming from. The soul. Just like there's stillbirths. A child is born, there's no life. Because the soul isn't there. If I were to leave this body right now, if I, the soul, were to leave this body right now, it would just lie here lifeless. Yeah. No activity. I'm able to speak, I'm able to see, and I'm able to hear, because the soul is there. As soon as the soul leaves, then there's no consciousness. When Prabhupada was in Boston, he spoke at MIT University. And he was asking the students, why is it that there is not a course where people could understand about the soul? You know, a body dies, but they can't put life back into the body. Everything is there. All the elements are, why can't they put life back into the dead body? And the students were like, yeah, well, why is that? So they very much appreciated Prabhupada's comment. Prabhupada knew what is consciousness. It's the soul. So the more one practices Krishna consciousness, the more one is able to realize that one is the soul within. Self-realization. The science of self-realization. That's what this Krishna consciousness is about. So the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Vedas. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita is this verse I just quoted, Sarvadhamam parityajya, and Prabhupada says the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita is Yat Kroshi Yadasnasi Yat Jahosi Dadasya Yat Tapasyasi Kaunteya Tat Krushvamararpanam. Prabhupada says this is the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities you perform, should be done as an offering to me. This is the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. All that you do. So we're all doing so many things. So whatever we do, we should do it for Krishna. Now that's a big blow on the false ego. Because we're used to doing everything for me. Right? Me, it's the me generation. I, everything's for me, for I. But no, we're not this body. Remember, we're the soul within. We're part of the Supreme Soul. So if we do things for Krishna, we become purified. We experience inner happiness. You know, all over the world, people are doing things for themselves. But the main disease on this planet right now is stress. In other words, there's no inner happiness. But if we do things for Krishna, then we experience this inner happiness. All that we do, all that we eat, whatever we eat, we should offer it to Krishna first. This is gratitude. Krishna's given us so many nice foodstuffs. But we shouldn't just chow down. No, we should offer it to Krishna. Gratitude, appreciation. Thank you, Krishna. And make a nice offering to Krishna. And then we honor it. We take prasad. And it becomes the mercy of Krishna. All that you offer. There's so many here in America. I think there's about $70 billion a year given in charity. So, best way to give charity is give charity to Krishna. Here, we have this temple here. It's not a very wealthy temple. We're always needing some financial help. And also, we're on this Bhagavad Gita distribution. Vaiseshika Prabhu, he has set a goal to distribute 3 million Bhagavad Gitas throughout the world in this 1 month. So we also want to distribute a lot of Bhagavad Gitas here in San Diego. Because there's a lot of illusion. Not only here in San Diego, all over the world, there's a lot of illusion. And Bhagavad Gita removes illusion, just like in that verse. Sanjaya said that my illusion is now gone. Or actually, Arjuna said, my illusion is now gone. So, we want to distribute a lot of books. So, every year, devotees, they sponsor Bhagavad Gitas. You may not be able to distribute the Bhagavad Gitas yourself, but we can distribute the Bhagavad Gitas, us book distributors. So you sponsor, and we give out to the people. So I was figuring out if you give a certain amount, then how many Bhagavad Gitas will be able to distribute. If you sponsor 10 cases, which is 240 Bhagavad Gitas, that's $600. If you sponsor 11 cases, maybe someone can answer this question. In Hindu society, they always give an odd number, 51 or 101 or 11 or 1001. Does anybody know why that is? Anybody here? Starts a beginning. Yeah. The one starts a beginning. When you one always go. One, then you can continue. You can give more donations. Yeah.
The zero is a zero. Put one stop zero. Put extra.
So that means you're going to give more. There's going to be more. Okay, I see. Okay, I was always wondering why is that. So if you donate $60, that's one case. That's 24 books. So I encourage you to sponsor, if you can, some of these books, and we'll be able to distribute more and more Bhagavad Gitas here in San Diego. And Bhagavad Gita is my favorite book. I'm sitting here today because I read the Bhagavad Gita. Would you like to know how that happened? Yeah. I grew up in Los Angeles, and at one point, I was 21 years old, I started being a little dissatisfied with what I was seeing in society. And I could see that it's what people are going through, just the whole system is not going to bring satisfaction. So I was at one friend's home, and one Swami was on television, and he was speaking about meditation and yoga and it's like this, and it sounded kind of interesting. So they had a place in Los Angeles where you can go and you could learn about it. You go there and you learn about what they do for 3 days, and then if you want, you can buy a mantra. So I thought, all right, let me check it out, see what it's like. So I bought my mantra. And the rest were very naive. We didn't know you don't buy mantras. So I went there, and they gave me a 2-syllable mantra for $120. Not cheap, you know. $60 for each syllable, you know. Ainga, that was Ainga. Yeah. Prabhupada heard about this and he said, I could have made so much money because we have 16 syllables in the Hare Krishna mantra. I could have made so much money. But Prabhupada said, I didn't come here to cheat you. I came here to give you knowledge of the truth. So I got my mantra, and you chant this mantra. Many of you may be familiar with this transcendental meditation. So, by the way, it wasn't transcendental. So you chant this mantra 15 minutes twice a day, and it kind of helped me slow down a little bit. So I was doing this mantra meditation, and then I thought, well, Los Angeles probably isn't a very good place for spirituality. So I decided to go traveling. But I was reading this one book by Baba Ram Das. Many of you may have heard of Baba Ram Das. He's a guru back in the 60s, 70s. So in his book, he says, as one goes on his spiritual journey, he becomes detached from material things and family and friends, and just in general, he kind of detaches from material life. So I thought, all right, that makes sense. You go on a spiritual journey, you give up material life. So I'm traveling. And as I'm traveling, someone stole all my things. And I said, well, that's good, you know. Couldn't give it up on my own, so it was taken away from me. So, good, yeah. I felt a little relief, you know, it's good. I'm on the right journey here. So, as I'm traveling, I thought, well, maybe the Bahamas would be a good place. Maybe there's some spiritually minded people there, like-minded people, and maybe you're all familiar with the Bahamas over there off the southeast coast of America. So I flew over there, and I was very disappointed. It was very materialistic. So I decided to leave the next day, back to Miami. But before I left, someone stole my money. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. Believe it or not, I felt so good. I felt so relieved. For one thing, I knew I'm on this journey, and I'm never going to go back to material life again, because these things are happening. And I just, actually, up to that point, I had never been so happy. I had nothing. But I was so happy, and I knew I'm going to go on this spiritual journey. And I was just anticipating. I was just anticipating what's the next page in this journey. What's next? So I flew back to Miami, and I started hitchhiking, not knowing where I'm going. So one person picked me up and he said, so where are you going? I said, I don't know. But I like it. God has me on this journey, and I like it. I don't know where I'm going, but I like it. He said, well, you're going to need some money wherever you go. So he said, you go down to Key West, Florida, get a job. So I thought I took that direction from God and went down to Key West. I got a job. I'm still reading this book by Baba Ram Das. In the back of the book, he has books recommended to read. And one of them was Bhagavad Gita. And when I saw those 2 words, I thought, yes, this looks like a very interesting book. So I went to the public library. Now there's 4 different Bhagavad Gitas. Now which one to pick out, right? So fortunately, our BBT Bhagavad Gita was more attractive, and I pulled out Prabhupada's. Otherwise, I don't know where I'd be now. I couldn't put it down. I read it in 3 days. It wasn't this one. Actually, this is the unabridged, but that one was the abridged. It didn't have all the purports, didn't have the Sanskrit. But I was just amazed. I couldn't stop reading it. Yeah, I read it in 3 days. And from reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is, I started chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. I stopped chanting the other mantra, threw that one out the window, and just chanted Hare Krishna. And I had this job where there was nobody around, so I was just chanting Hare Krishna all day long. And it was so nice. I was getting a spiritual high. It's like Prabhupada says, he had this pamphlet, Stay High Forever. Back in the 60s, that was a big thing, getting high. So Prabhupada said, stay high forever. So I was getting a high, a spiritual high from chanting Hare Krishna. So after 3 days of chanting Hare Krishna, I went outside, just the exit there, and just 100 yards from the exit, there was devotees there chanting Harinam. So I went to them and I said, hey, you guys are chanting the same mantra I chant. And they said, oh, you chant Hare Krishna? I said, yeah, all day long in that building over there. They're like, what? So they were surprised, and I was surprised. We were both surprised that we met each other. So they said, we have a little center here. If you'd like, you could come and stay with us. So I said, okay. So I moved in that night with them. And then eventually I went to Miami. So that's how I was captured by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's mercy. And now for the past 44 years I've been distributing the Bhagavad Gita. You get something good, then you want to share it with others, right? Naturally. So this is the best thing I've ever come across on this planet. So I think everybody in the world should have a Bhagavad Gita. It would be a much better place in the world if people had the Bhagavad Gita and they read it. Some people have the Bhagavad Gita, they don't read it. So it's important to also read it. So I wanted to tell you some stories. By the way, I'm the minister of book distribution for our ISKCON society. So I travel around the world and I distribute Bhagavad Gitas to people all over the world. And I've had some nice experiences in my distribution days. I was distributing books in Australia, and I had the Bhagavad Gita in my hand, and I was approaching people, and I was talking to one person, showing it, and another person came by and said, excuse me, do you know where I can get that book? I've been looking for that book for years. I said, yeah, sure, I have it right here, I'm distributing them. He said, no, you're serious? I said, yeah. He was so happy. He was so happy. He thought I was just a friend with this other person. We were just explaining the Bhagavad Gita. So he took the Bhagavad Gita. So happy. Believe it or not, the next day, same place, Brisbane, Australia, I'm walking around with the Bhagavad Gita, and a person says, excuse me, do you know where I can get that book you have in your hand? The next day. It's amazing. I couldn't believe it. Brisbane, Australia. It's like... So I said, well, today's your lucky day, because I'm distributing these, and this one is for you. We just asked for a donation. He said, all right. He was so happy. So people are looking for the Bhagavad Gita. It's actually very, very famous. Even Einstein, he said he was very fond of the Bhagavad Gita. Famous Einstein. Emerson, Thoreau, of course, Gandhi. So many people. And one of the reasons I distribute Bhagavad Gita is because it's so famous. So many times people say, oh yeah, I'm always reading books and there's quotes from the Bhagavad Gita and I've always wanted to own one. So it's such an amazing literature. So therefore I distribute it. Once I was distributing also in Australia, and I knocked on a door. And the person opened the door, and he saw I had the Bhagavad Gita. He said, no, not interested. I worship Satan. So I said, well, this book is all about God, so you should know your enemy. He said, all right, good point. All right, yeah, I'll take one. And he gave $20. Krishna says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, prana artha diya vacha, that once you give one's life for the benefit of others, to benefit others. Prana artha, once you give one's wealth for the benefit of others. Hint, hint, for those who want to give some donations for Bhagavad Gitas. Once he gives one life, one's wealth, one's intelligence. Prana artha diya. Diya means intelligence. So when we're distributing books, we have to also, Krishna is known as Diyapati. He's the Lord of intelligence. So we pray to Krishna for intelligence to convince people to take books. Because quite often people, they give excuses of why they don't want to take a Bhagavad Gita. So we have to use our intelligence to convince them to take. Quite often I meet Christians, and they say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. I'm a Christian. I say, well, that's okay. We're not trying to change your beliefs. There's always more to learn about God, right? You see, first they take their defense off, and then they say, well, there's something positive. You take the negative away, then you add the positive. There's always more to learn about God, right? I distribute so many Bhagavad Gitas to Christians with that little line. And I had a pretty amazing experience with a person, an Indian gentleman, in the Los Angeles airport. I was speaking to him, and I offered the Bhagavad Gita to him, and he said, I have something to show you. And I thought he was also going to bring the Bhagavad Gita out, but he brought out the Bible. And I said, well, isn't that ironic? Here I am, an American, offering you the Bhagavad Gita, and you're from India, and you're showing me the Bible. Now, I've read the Bible. Have you read the Bhagavad Gita? He said, no. So, you should also read the Bhagavad Gita, and get a clear understanding of, concepts of God, right? He said, all right. So he took the Bhagavad Gita. Another time, just a few days after that, I was distributing books, and this gentleman was showing a little bit of interest, but then he thought, nah, I probably won't read it. So I said to him, up here, I pointed to it, said, you're not showing much interest. But here, the soul is saying, get the book. Get the book. Get the book. And he said, all right, you got me, all right. And then he took the Bhagavad Gita. So sometimes there's a battle with the mind, right? The soul and the mind. Yeah. So I was distributing books in Fiji, and I was giving seminars to the devotees there. There's nice temples, many nice temples in Fiji. So I was giving a seminar, and this one lady that was in the seminar, she got inspired. And the next day she went to her place where she worked, and she offered the Bhagavad Gita to her boss. And he gave a donation. He was enthusiastic to get it. And then she didn't see him after that day. And then she saw him in the city somewhere, and she said, oh, I haven't seen you at our workplace anymore. He said, after you gave me the Bhagavad Gita, I thought, now I have time to read, I have money, I don't need this job. He quit his job and just spent his time reading Bhagavad Gita. So this is the Shakti of the Bhagavad Gita. So many people have heard about it and want to read it. So we want to distribute it to these people. So I encourage you highly to donate, to sponsor Bhagavad Gitas. And this will be for your benefit and for the benefit of others who receive the Bhagavad Gita. It changes people's lives. It completely changed my life. So many, as I travel around, I ask people, how did you come to Krishna consciousness? How did you join? Oh, I got a Bhagavad Gita. I mean, it's amazing. So many people I meet that are devotees, they became devotees because of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, as you know, it's not an easy read. It's not an easy read. But there's people that are searching. Like I was searching. And therefore, I went through it so quickly because it was just, it was nectar. I just loved it because it's the absolute truth. It's the words of God. And the words of God are powerful, right? So, those are some words on the Bhagavad Gita. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So is there any questions or comments anybody may have? Yes.
Is there a kid's version?
A kid's version of the Bhagavad Gita. There should be a kid's version of the Bhagavad Gita. Do we? Do it? I know Vishaka. I think Vishaka, she did something. We might have, but there should be. Of course, then you'd have to change it. And that's a big thing in our society, is changing the words of Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita. Anything else? Okay, there's many ways that you could donate. We have, there's an electronic way to donate here. I think you could just put your card in there, or you can give a check, or you can give, whatever, however you like. But we want to distribute a lot of books. This is called the Prabhupada Marathon this month, December. So therefore, we're having this campaign to distribute 3 million Bhagavad Gitas. So hopefully, many of those books will be distributed right here in San Diego. So no other question or comment? Yes, Prabhu.
Could you repeat the cost of one case and how many?
One case is 24 Gitas, Bhagavad Gitas, and they're $60. So 10 of those, that would be 600. Half of that would be 300. And what was it? And 200. No, that would be 120 Gitas. Yeah. So now we're going to have a fire yajna right here in the temple room, small one, by our head pujari here, in honor of the advent of the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.